Okay, good afternoon everyone. My name is Fernando Balbas, and in this particular scenario, my job as a consulting specialist of the big consulting brand is to describe how the United States could be marked as a potential market with all the current information Pirma needs to determine to create an adequate strategy in order to ensure a good reception in American markets. Here we got some motivational phrases to keep going with it. And here's a little description of my job. You can see the companies I've worked with right here, and that it will be a total honor to me to let me work with you. Now, the first point to discuss is the relationship between American demographics and purchasing power. This in order to be favorable for your products. You can see right here the United States population pyramid of 2017, and you can see right here some economic data of that same country in recent years. Comparing these two factors, you can see that most of the population have an age range between 20 and 29 years old. This means that the main part of Pirma's market has the purchasing power to acquire this type of products, if we take into account the economic data shown above. So, in fact, this relationship is favorable for the brand, in terms of determining if the target population in the States is big enough to cover the offer, and of course, if it conflicts with the economic resources to acquire the products. Now, speaking about American political system, all the information you need to know is written right here. The US is ranked 22nd out of 180 countries in the world's corruption list, with an average score of 7.1 out of 10 in terms of transparency. In fact, this information is a main factor to determine that American market is quite a safe one, and your brand can be sure that every operation process will have a high grade of transparency, which is helping for Pirma to determine this project's viability. If we talk about economic system influence, the United States has a mixed economic system that features characteristics of both capitalism and socialism. The US government controls or partially controls many goods or services such as education, courts, roads, hospital care, and postal delivery. And it also provides subsidies to agricultural producers, oil companies, financial companies, or textile companies as well. Now, in the US private businesses, in terms of importing and exporting, Pirma needs to be registered to federal government agency to get an approved work license. Pirma needs to discuss its register with New Balance in terms of support at the moment of declaring against government. And this is an important point because New Balance will be the main distributor of your products. Or that's my main idea. In order to not having any trouble at all once the commodity got into the country. Considering government regulations of textile industry, the interested company, that's you, must comply with all considerations for importing textiles included in Consumer Product Safety Commission, the CPSC. Wearing apparel must have labels specifying content of instructions for care, and all textiles must have either labels indicating the country or origin from. Or if this is not feasible, the merchandise should be packed in such a way that country of origin is discernible to the ultimate purchaser, and include fiber content and manufacturer identity as well. This means that the US is not imposing economic regulations as Mexico. They know that this sector workforce requires foreign support, and they impose minimum requirements, which is a main advantage to consider once Pirma begins operations in the USA. Now, if we talk about foreign direct investments in the US, all you need to know is written right here. You can see this is a country where foreign companies are well received, which is just what you need. And now, in terms of fiscal incentives, this country offers a foreign tax credit, which reduces US income tax liability dollar for dollar, while a deduction reduces that the US income tax liability at the marginal rate of the taxpayer. Everything written right here. Just consider it. Now here's a dollar analysis that shows that American dollar is getting into a depreciation against Mexican peso. Not a big one, I must say, but it's very highlighted that dollar value is not the same as some months ago, when its value was around 20.19 pesos. This could lead to a reduced business opening from the US against other countries, in terms of increasing their currency value, and that's one of the main factors that Pirma needs to be aware of once they start negotiations with that country. This could be the main factor to take care of, because it's quite a negative one. Now, here's a list of recommendations for Pirma to approach to American businessmen and ensure success in negotiations. As a first point, Americans usually refrain from greetings that involve hugging and close physical contact. The standard space between you and your counterpart should be about 2 feet, because most executives will be uncomfortable standing at the closest distance. When giving an item to another person, it's common to toss it or hand it over with only one hand. Americans tend to adopt sports terms in their business speech, such as touch base, call the shots, ballpark figures, and game plan, like few examples of it. Golf is a very popular sport right there, especially among business executives. Golf is a normally venue for business deals, so be prepared to play golf and talk about businesses at the same time. In the US, little businesses are conducted on Sundays, which is the usual day of worship for many religions. The concept time is money is taken seriously in this business culture, so you'd be fast to describe what you want from them. Business executives are used to making up their minds quickly and decisively. They value straightforward and to the point information, just like what I'm doing to you right now. And finally, risk-taking often results in Americans going for the biggest slice of the business, 100% if possible, so you should be aware of that. Now, the way you can comply with relevant environmental regulations are right here. These are the regulations you need to comply with, and I don't need to describe them because they are all written right here. Now, about American labor practices, employees are distinguished by the existence of an employment contract or employment at will. This at will employment can be freely terminated by either the employer or the employee for any or no reason, with or without notice, so long as a federal, state, or local law is not violated. Now, under the Labor Standards Act, the FLSA, employers are required to pay covered employees the federal minimum wage, $7.25 per hour, which is the exact same to 130 pesos per hour, and overtime pay for hours worked in excess of 40 hours a week. Additionally, many states and localities enact laws regarding minimum wage, overtime, and mandatory wage. And in terms of labor unions, according to the Center for American Progress, the CAP, a left-leaning think tank, 28.3% of all American workers were members of unions in 1967. Which means that if Pirma requires American workforce in the future, they must know that the labor unions will always be there. And all they need to do is to keep a good relationship with them. That's my main suggestion to you. Now, about Mexican trade policy with the US, the NAFTA, the National Agreement, the North American Federal Trade Agreement, went into effect in January 1 of 1994. And exports under this treatment support more than 3 million American jobs, which is a main factor for the economy. Now these charts on the left, this one and this one, shows that exporting these types of items to the US are exempt on paying tariffs, just in case you are a Mexican company, which you are. And this results in less exports cost to Pirma and can put the economic efforts in different activities. Now here's a list of recommendations from the big consulting brand to you. Based on the carried out research, we consider it more than feasible for the company to start commercial operations in the US. First of all, because import quotas and tariffs are eliminated in these particular operations. And then, it is known that the target market is broad and with enough purchasing power for the acquisition of the products. Then, you can see that the United States is considered the first potential host economy, which is just what you need. And finally, it is known that the US is not imposing economic regulations as Mexico, and that all you gotta do is comply with package information. And that is the main advantage to consider once Pirma begins operations in the USA. Here are the costs of the operations, eliminating the export cost, and the custom broker cost is about $1,315, which gives this total cost, including flight from Guadalajara to Manzanillo, and then to Long Beach, California, and then to Los Angeles, which is where New Balance commodities are. Now in this scenario, we consider the total merchandise Pirma should send by container. You are only allowed to send this total merchandise considering the measures of each container. Now, due to experiences with other companies, we certainly believe that the best option to Pirma is to enter into American market in a sectorial manner. First, covering the American cities where Mexican people live the most, like Los Angeles, New York, San Diego, Dallas, and Chicago. This could be your main competitive advantage. In fact, you're a Mexican brand, and your target should be Mexican people in the States, people that know or have known the brand for a while. So, that's how you could compete against consolidated enterprises in the US. Now, based on the success of these cities, it can be determined if the rest of the territory is continued or not. Now, in the beginning, and because Pirma are beginners in the American market, granting licenses for the sale of products in another sports branch should be appropriate, just like the case of Skechers and Charlie. And after that, and once the brand consolidates in the market, it is more probable to generate a subsidiary in the production of goods in the States. This investment having the objective of reducing cost of this type of operations. Now, speaking about acquisitions or strategic alliances, as mentioned above, and having an acceptance period of 3 years in the US, this company must form an alliance with sports American company New Balance, while Pirma could be allowed to sell the products in America at New Balance facilities, while New Balance can sell the products at Pirma's branches in Mexico. Here are the conclusions for this presentation, and I certainly believe this is a quite good idea. It's all to you. And here's the bibliography I used. The first one and the second one. Now the decision is all on you, and I hope to hear from you soon. Good afternoon and goodbye.